When I think about managing a week, I always return to one simple truth. Most people fail not because they lack time, but because they try to do everything at once. Early in my career, I faced the same trap. I was a teacher, a small businessman, and someone trying to learn the internet in China when nobody believed it could succeed. I remember feeling overwhelmed by 100 small tasks, each screaming for attention. Then I realized something crucial. Not every task carries equal weight. The real secret was to focus on the few actions that actually move the needle, the tasks that compound into real, lasting results. Once I learned to ruthlessly prioritize, I discovered that saying no became more important than saying yes. Low-value tasks are like invisible thieves. They drain energy, steal focus, and delay your future without you noticing. If you can eliminate them, you create room to tackle the battles that truly shape your destiny. This is the foundation of weekly mastery. The week isn't a list to fill, it's a strategic map to execute what matters most. Success does not come from doing everything, but from doing the right things relentlessly, without distraction. Remember, the difference between winners and everyone else is not luck, it is focus. By choosing your priorities wisely, every week becomes a step toward unstoppable momentum, and every decision starts to align with your true potential. Discipline in selection is the bridge between mere action and extraordinary achievement. Many people think managing a week is about hours on a calendar, but I learned the hard way that energy, not time, is the true currency of success. In the early days of Alibaba, I would sometimes schedule my day perfectly, only to feel drained and unproductive because I hadn't protected my focus or emotional stamina. I realized that not all hours are equal. Sitting through endless meetings, entertaining complaints, or reacting to every distraction slowly saps your drive. Weekly, management is not about filling your days with activity. It's about safeguarding the energy you need for the decisions and actions that truly matter. I began to identify the people, habits, and tasks that quietly drained me and removed them. At first, it felt selfish, but I realized it was necessary. When you protect your energy, your priorities gain power. Execution becomes sharper, ideas flow faster, and focus no longer leaks away into distractions. Discipline over energy is more important than discipline over time, after all. 7 hours of high-energy focus are worth more than 14 hours of distraction. Every great achievement starts with a foundation of concentrated energy, and the week you manage wisely becomes the stage where your potential is amplified. By guarding your energy, you ensure that your actions, not your intentions, determine your results, turning every week into a building block for your future. Remember, the world only remembers doers, not dreamers. Protect your energy, and the week itself becomes your ally. I want to share a truth that most people refuse to admit. The loudest obstacle in your week is often the voice inside your own head. I know this well because in my early years, rejection followed me everywhere. From universities to job interviews to investors who laughed at my ideas. Each no whispered, maybe you're not good enough. And if I had listened, Alibaba would never have existed. The habit of letting self-doubt dictate your schedule is dangerous. It fragments your focus and turns simple tasks into mountains. Weekly planning is not just about tasks. It's about giving yourself permission to act boldly despite fear. I learned to treat my inner critic like background noise, acknowledge it, but never let it dictate the agenda of my week. When you schedule your days with confidence, doubt has no space to grow. Each hour becomes a statement of self-trust, every action a vote for your own capability. People often think motivation alone will carry them through, but discipline without self-belief is like trying to sail with a broken mast. Silence your inner critic, and suddenly, the week that seemed overwhelming becomes a series of achievable victories. Momentum builds because fear is no longer the gatekeeper. Trust yourself to act, and the week becomes a canvas for results, not a battlefield of hesitation. Remember, the world only rewards those who act despite fear, not those who wait for courage to arrive. I want to share a truth that most people refuse to admit. The loudest obstacle in your week is often the voice inside your own head. I know this well because in my early years, rejection followed me everywhere, from universities to job interviews to investors who laughed at my ideas. Each no whispered, Maybe you're not good enough. And if I had listened, Alibaba would never have existed. The habit of letting self-doubt dictate your schedule is dangerous. It fragments your focus and turns simple tasks into mountains. Weekly planning is not just about tasks. It's about giving yourself permission to act boldly despite fear. I learned to treat my inner critic like background noise, acknowledge it, but never let it dictate the agenda of my week. When you schedule your days with confidence, doubt has no space to grow. Each hour becomes a statement of self-trust, every action a vote for your own capability. People often think motivation alone will carry them through, but discipline without self-belief is like trying to sail with a broken mast. Silence your inner critic, and suddenly, the week that seemed overwhelming becomes a series of achievable victories. Momentum builds because fear is no longer the gatekeeper. Trust yourself to act, and the week becomes a canvas for results, not a battlefield of hesitation. Remember, the world only rewards those who act despite fear, not those who wait for courage to arrive. Let me tell you something that changed the way I work forever. The secret to mastering. Your week is not in doing more, but in doing smarter. Early in my life, I would jump from one task to another, answering emails, attending meetings, and chasing small problems as they came. By the end of the day, I was exhausted, and nothing meaningful was accomplished. Then I realized the power of batching, grouping similar tasks together to focus completely, one block at a time. When I applied this principle, weeks that once felt chaotic became predictable and productive. Your mind works best when it can stay in one rhythm, not constantly switching gears. This is why I tell people, treat your week like a machine, not a series of random sparks. Batch the important tasks, and suddenly, energy multiplies, output increases, and small wins compound into significant progress. Every block of focused work is a deliberate step toward a larger vision. It's not about working harder, it's about working with strategy and intention. Efficiency becomes habit, and results become inevitable. Remember, execution, not intention, determines who wins. If you plan your week like a scattered artist, you will produce a sketch. But if you plan it like a master craftsman, the week becomes a masterpiece. The choice is yours. One of the biggest mistakes I saw people make, and I almost made it myself, is thinking that big goals will achieve themselves if you just wait and work when inspired. Early in my career, I would set grand visions for Alibaba, but without concrete deadlines. Those ideas often stayed on paper for months. That's when I discovered the power of micro deadlines, breaking the week into small, actionable checkpoints. Each task, no matter how small, has its own mini deadline, and hitting it creates momentum. It's like turning a slow river into a rushing stream. Progress accelerates because your focus is continuous and measurable. These micro deadlines are not just about time. They create accountability, sharpen your mind, and force action even when motivation is low. I learned that vague intentions are the enemy of execution, but precise targets keep your week on track. When every task has a deadline, you start to feel the rhythm of success in your body. You can measure progress, adjust quickly, and avoid the silent thief of procrastination. Remember, success is not a one-time event. It is a series of deliberate steps taken consistently. The week becomes a series of small victories, each one feeding your confidence and pushing you closer to the bigger vision. By mastering micro deadlines, you take the abstract idea of planning and turn it into real, visible results. Discipline becomes measurable and action becomes unstoppable. When I look back at my early days, I realized that one of the biggest obstacles to success was not lack of skill, but the endless distractions around me. Meetings that achieved nothing, endless social chatter, and people who drained my energy, they all quietly stole hours, even days from my life. I had to learn the hard way that protecting your time is the highest form of respect you can give yourself. Weekly management is not just about planning tasks. It's about ruthlessly cutting out everything that does not serve your vision. This doesn't mean you ignore the world, but you choose your battles wisely. Every yes you give to a trivial obligation is a no to your future. I discovered that success is earned by those who treat their schedule as sacred. You cannot grow if your days are scattered. Energy leaks are silent killers of potential. By removing time wasters, you reclaim control and ensure that each hour contributes to meaningful outcomes. Discipline in protecting your schedule is the bridge between good intentions and tangible results. Remember, execution always beats excuse. When you are courageous enough to eliminate distractions, your week transforms from chaotic to intentional, and your potential finally has space to thrive. I often tell the story of Thomas Edison because it carries a lesson that most people overlook. Edison failed 1,000 times before he finally created the light bulb, but notice how he worked every single day, methodically, without wasting time on distractions or complaining about the past. He didn't rely on inspiration or wait for the perfect moment. He treated every week as an opportunity to experiment, to improve, to move closer to his goal. Weekly planning is exactly the same. If you approach your days without structure, without deliberate action, you risk scattering your energy and letting potential slip away unnoticed. I remember in my early days, I could have easily wasted weeks worrying about whether investors would believe in Alibaba. Instead, I focused on what I could control each week: meetings, research, outreach, and let consistency compound into results. The lesson is clear. Persistence alone is not enough. It must be structured persistence. Small, deliberate efforts, repeated and refined each week, create the breakthroughs that feel sudden to others, but are inevitable to those who work with discipline. Just like Edison, your future is built one intentional week at a time, not by sporadic bursts of energy or unfocused ambition. Efficiency, structure, and consistency, these are the real ingredients of extraordinary results. One of the most overlooked secrets to managing your week effectively is the people you allow into your life. I learned early on that my energy and focus could be sabotaged not just by tasks, but by the people around me. Friends who complained constantly, colleagues who doubted every idea, or even mentors who discouraged risk. All of them quietly dictated the rhythm of my days. I remember a period when I allowed too many voices to influence me. My week became fragmented, my priorities diluted, and my confidence shaken. Slowly, I realized that weekly mastery isn't just about tasks or deadlines. It's about selectively choosing who has access to your energy. Protecting your circle means surrounding yourself with people who inspire, challenge, and support your vision, and distancing from those who drain or distract. Your success is not just about what you do, but who you allow to influence your decisions, your focus, and your momentum. Guarding your relationships is as crucial as guarding your calendar, because a toxic circle will quietly unravel even the most carefully planned week. Discipline over distractions applies to people too. In the end, protecting your circle is protecting your future, ensuring that every week builds toward your long-term vision rather than dissipating into the noise of others' doubts. Mastering your week is not a one-time effort, it is a continuous cycle of reflection and adjustment. I discovered that if I didn't take time at the end of each week to honestly review what worked and what didn't, mistakes would repeat and progress would stall. Reflection allows you to see patterns, where energy was wasted, which tasks yielded real results, and which habits quietly undermined your efforts. Early in my career, I would push through busy weeks thinking that being active was enough, only to realize that without reflection, my actions were scattered, my focus diluted. By setting aside moments to analyze the week, you can refine priorities, eliminate unnecessary work, and double down on strategies that create impact. Adjustment is the bridge between intention and achievement. Without it, weeks can pass without meaningful growth, no matter how busy you feel. Growth comes from learning cycles embedded in your weekly routine. When you pause, reflect, and adjust, you transform ordinary actions into deliberate steps toward extraordinary outcomes. Reflection turns effort into wisdom, ensuring that each week builds not just busyness, but progress aligned with your vision. Discipline without reflection is wasted energy. Insight without action is wasted knowledge. Master your weeks, and your long-term goals will follow naturally. The truth I learned early in my journey is simple, but often ignored. If you don't control your week controls you. Most people drift, reacting to emails, meetings, and distractions, believing they are busy when in reality their time is stolen by other people's priorities. I realized that mastering my week meant intentionally designing every day, choosing what to focus on, who to engage with, and which tasks would compound into meaningful results. This is not just about productivity, it is about taking command of your life. Every habit, every energy decision, every tiny accountability action creates momentum, and momentum shapes destiny. I remember times when I felt overwhelmed, watching opportunities slip by because I allowed weeks to be chaotic. But when I began to plan, protect, and execute deliberately, I found a rhythm that amplified every effort and minimized wasted motion. Owning your week is a microcosm of owning your life. Discipline becomes freedom, planning becomes power, and action becomes unstoppable. The future doesn't wait, but if you seize control of your 7 days, you seize control of the life you have always imagined. Weekly mastery is not optional. It is the foundation on which extraordinary success is built.